Well, for the next hour, they're going to be the views of Bob Chapman from the International Forecaster as we try to bring you abreast of what's really going on behind the scenes financially. And, of course, General Motors is going into bankruptcy. Chrysler is going into bankruptcy. Well, they're transferring the control of Chrysler to Fiat Motor Company. Now, there's all sorts of conflicting information out there. Supposedly, Fiat is going to get 20% of the company, and, of course, the union is going to get 55%, and the bondholders are going to get 10%, and our government and Canada, Canadian government, are going to get another 15 or 20%. All these figures keep varying all the time. But one thing is sure, and that is that most of the stockholders are going to get absolutely nothing. And, of course, apparently there's a possibility that Fiat could end up with 30%, even as much as 51%. So why did the administration decide unilaterally to transfer control of Fiat to an Italian company? Why not put it up for bid for other companies to actually bid on this and get the best deal for Chrysler? But apparently, our government is smarter than the market. They want to transfer the company to Fiat. What's going to happen to General Motors? Well, I'm going to let Bob tell you because he's on top of all of these things. Hi, Bob. Thanks very much for being with us. Tell us your take on what's going on and how it's going to create more jobs in America to transfer General Motors or give General Motors another $30 to $50 million when $30 to $50 billion when they're, of course, transferring their center of operations overseas, and how it's going to create jobs in America to transfer control of Chrysler to an Italian company. Go right ahead.
Well, as you pointed out before, the Italian company is one of the key top Illuminati companies in Europe, and that's why. And they're not going to put any money down. And you're right, they can get 20 to 51% of the company. And the bondholders weren't treated fairly. In normal bankruptcy proceeding, the bondholders have precedent. They get paid first, and the creditors, they get paid nothing, and to speak of. And, of course, the shareholders always lose everything, so that's understood. And the Chrysler deal just stinks to high heaven. And then we have the GM deal. The U.S. government, what is it, 20%? It's 60% for the U.S. government, and about 10 or 15% for the Canadian government, and I guess the labor union's in there as well. I think they get 15%, and the bondholders, get the shaft again. And I don't see how anybody can invest in bonds. They have to be crazy.
Well, of course, a lot of people have bonds, but the bond market's 10 times larger than the stock market. People don't understand that. But here's where, of course, so many of the pension funds and the insurance companies and other financial institutions are investing their money. I mean, a sure rate of return. I mean, bonds don't default, or do they? Well, certainly they're defaulting right now. We're going to be back in just a moment with Bob Chapman as we analyze what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. It's vitally important that you understand, I believe there's an organized effort to destroy the infrastructure of our nation.
No, they're not.
Well, this is Dr. Stan. Our guest is Bob Chapman. We're talking about the bankruptcy of General Motors and Chrysler, and the fact that Chrysler is going to be General Motors is going to be shifting its major production facilities overseas. Ford is already in the process of doing that, but they're not telling the American people that, and we're giving all this money to General Motors so they can shift their production overseas, so they can take their jobs overseas. But the American people, well, it's just like the husband. He was always the last one to know. Go right ahead, Bob.
But anyway, you're right about that. And, this started in 1980. These plans were all laid years ago. The deliberate destruction of these companies. Why they haven't destroyed Ford yet, I don't know. At least for the time being, they're doing okay. and they've had smarter marketing, and they also have kept up their bond interest. And yes, they're losing money, but so is in every manufacturer of automobiles and trucks in the world today. And so they may very well make it. They may need help from the government, but or the marketplace. But quite frankly, they deserve it. And so that's what we get left. But the whole thing, it's a matter of deliberately destroying not only the automobile industry, but all of the suppliers, losing all of the skills in the machine tool business that can never be replaced, that have been passed on from generation to generation. The total destruction of $30 an hour jobs for people who are now making $10 to $15 an hour for the most part. And it's, as we've discussed over and over again, it's the deliberate destruction of our economy and finances. And it's spreading throughout the whole world as well. And they knew that. They want everybody to succumb to world government. That's what this is all about. And
in other words, they're wrecking the economy of nations throughout the world to force them to go into this world government. As Henry Kissinger said, is either the new international order or chaos. And this is what the countries are facing. And if they are not facing chaos, why, we'll be sure that they do. And I think it's important people understand.
I can assure you, after that Bilderberger meeting, they're quite concerned about how things are going. And the Henry Kissingers of this world should be very concerned, because everybody knows what they've done, who are informed. And now we've got more and more coverage worldwide of the things that we talk about in this program. And, of course, this is why it's vital, because we're reaching all over the world. And people who didn't know before are finding out every single day. I mean, this weekend I answered over 500 emails. I mean, I've never had that many. And, usually on the weekend I might get 200. But 500.
Well, I think
our requests for free copies of the publication are running about 250 a day, where they normally were about 50 to 75.
Well, let's hope they all subscribe.
Well, yeah, but but it's important, those facts, because it shows you people are reaching out. They really want to know what's going on, and this is the first opportunity for them. And of course, my appearances now on mainline media, which they must be crazy to put me on there. But anyway, that's bringing in scads and scads of people who didn't know anything before.
Well, I understood, though, that on Fox they told you couldn't talk about the Federal Reserve System.
Yeah, and then I did, and they didn't say anything.
Okay. Well,
in fact, they even talked about, and whether this will happen, I don't know, but they talked to some people that I know about putting me on with Michael Savage. So we'll see what develops out of that.
All right. Well, I hope, Bob, I know you're getting the information out, and people have to understand this is all planned ahead of time. Anybody who doubts that, we have a 4-tape set. We call it The New Order of the Barbarians. It was recorded in the early 1990s. Interviews with Dr. Denigan, who in 1969 had heard the whole plan laid out to destroy the American automotive industry. Of course, all the other things that were laid out have come to pass in the way of, certainly the population control agenda programs and the effort to certainly create new diseases. But one of the most significant things, that truly chilling, they were talking about in 1969 was how they were going to destroy the American automotive industry. And it's all come to pass. Truly prophetic. And as they say, this was recorded 15 or 16, almost at least 15 years ago, The New Order of the Barbarians, one of the most amazing 4-tape sets that we have. Well, Bob, certainly what's happening as far as the rest of the economy? Certainly gold and silver have been moving up, and in one of your recent publications, you commented that the people working at our embassies overseas had actually been told to start accumulating local currencies and lay in a good supply of it, almost as if the American dollar was not going to be really, of course, used as a medium of exchange in 4 or 5 months. What was that story about?